Welcome to Braindrop by VCOM Solutions. Each episode, we talk to IT leaders and experts, explore recent projects, and learn from their triumphs and challenges. We hope today's episode provides you with a unique window into the world of IT, where creativity meets problem solving and technology drives businesses forward. I'm your host, Jethro Castillo. Now let's drop into today's conversation. Today on Braindrop by VCOM Solutions, I am joined by Simoriah Stogner, Senior Manager of Technology Services and IT Operations at Jack Henry. As a well-rounded financial technology company, Jack Henry advocates and innovates for the people they serve, their associates, financial institutions, and their account holders, their partners, and their shareholders. As one company, they are a force for good, breaking down barriers to financial health while deepening relationships between people and their financial institutions. Passionate about people and technology, Simoriah Stogner has embarked on a 17-year career journey in tech, rising through the ranks of 9 enterprise technology service areas and 4 leadership promotions, and is a national women in technology community leader and professional speaker. Simoriah, it's good to be here with you today. First of all, really cool name. And second of all, thank you for being the first woman speaker on this podcast.
It is a sincere honor to be your very first woman in tech guest speaker. But thank you just so much, Jethro, for inviting me to come speak with you and have a chance to share with your audience some of the things that have been passionate or key principles to my own profession and my career. I'm excited to be able to share about this topic with you all today.
All right. So now that my script is over, let's ask some questions and have a good conversation. So, Simoriah, how did you get started in IT?
So, awesome story. I got started in IT just 3 months after I graduated high school. And so at that time, I was a high school teen mom. I was also a homeless teen mom. So I had a pretty rough childhood experience. But what I found is once I became a mother, I knew I needed to start providing for myself and for my young son. So I started exploring different careers and different professions. I did that through career fairs through my high school and just talking to different resources that my counselor could source me. And I came across technology as a potential pathway for me. Something that really stood out to me with technology as a profession at that point in my life was it seemed to have high paying salaries. So there was potential to be a strong provider for my family, but also there was opportunities for entry level input into the profession. And so that my motivations for why I pursued technology. How I actually got started in technology was with Jack Henry 17 years ago. And I basically went through a series of interviews after I had a chance to explore those career professions. And after a very extensive interview process, they eventually extended me an entry level job offer on their service desk. And so I started out on Jack Henry's service desk, managing their accounts for their workforce. So, you know what happens if you enter in your password wrong too many times and your account gets locked and you get a message from the website or the application saying you need to contact the administrator to get assistance. That's what I did. So that's how I got started in technology. The motivation behind it was, I needed to be a provider and I had aspirations to be a learner. I didn't necessarily have any skills in technology at that time. To be totally honest with you, I landed this job and my first day on the job, I was asked to send an email to a colleague and I didn't even know how the heck
Um,
that. I had no idea what Outlook was. I back then, email was barely a thing even. In high school, I barely even got typing as an intro
mm,
to any technology. It sounds like it's like so far away, like I grew up, like 50 years ago, but this was literally just 17 years ago. Typing was barely
that's right.
offered in schooling.
That's
And
right.
so, yeah, generally I started that long ago and I've had to learn since the very first day on the job.
There's a lot to unpack here. One, 17 years at one company. Two, coming in with no experience. But three, not only 17 years, but to grow in role and to develop and to grow into a leadership position. I mean, you had to learn so much. And I think that says a
Yep.
lot to Jack Henry and a lot to you, to Jack Henry for providing you that environment to grow and learn, and to you for really taking that. Um, but I'm very curious about that story of, yeah, you started no interest in tech. Well, not interest, but no sort of specialty in tech, no skills in tech. And yet 17 years later, you are now a leader in tech. Kind of contextualize that for me. Talk about that a little
Yeah,
bit.
I would love to. So, exposure to the technology, being positioned on that help desk, it made me start to get really curious. Like, I was responsible for some technology, but mostly I was in a position in that organization where I was exposed to all areas of the business. And this was a large tech business. So every employee was a technologist that I had the chance to actually engage with, whether they were doing business operations and management for marketing or HR even, or whether they were creating and developing hardware and software for our consumer marketplace. So generally, it gave me a lot of opportunity to socialize from a phone setting and ask a lot of different questions of a lot of different people. And that started to pique my interest like, wow, technology is really doing some great things. And then from there, I knew that I wanted to do more than unlock people's accounts. That just wasn't fulfilling work
Mm.
for very long. Let me tell you that. Once I got it, I got it. And then I just wanted more of a challenge. So I started asking more questions. I asked of my Jack Henry leaders if I could job shadow different
Mm.
positions than I had a chance to be exposed to. And they were very supportive of that. They would let me take a half a day or a full day to go work in a different department and literally just be exposed to that job role, that function, that business unit to understand it. And so generally, I started out not knowing much, but I was in a position where I could ask a lot of questions. And I was definitely one of those curious people. I recognize myself as a life learner at this point. So I love asking questions to learn. And so I did the job shadowing stuff. Jack Henry has been very good about learning and development for their associates. They offer us it seems like it could be an endless, resource pool for upskilling, reskilling, educating. Just generally, there's a lot of different resources. If we want them, we can use them, and I was one of those people that leveraged those resources. So I got exposure to the server world after the help desk. And I thought, wow, I want to do more than just help employees figure out why their monitor is not working or, troubleshooting an Outlook application on their workstation. I want to do something that was actually helping set us up for what we were doing in our marketplace. And to me, that was in the data center world. That was the supercomputers of the servers at that time to me. And that was us hosting our solutions to the Jack Henry customer base, which is financial institutions, small and community in size. And, to me, I started to understand the purpose of Jack Henry's work a bit more in that way and understanding the impact of our
Mm.
work. Our work was very significant. You had a very nice intro where you talked about our account holders and essentially what we do, but generally, we're running the financial services of America. And that is really purposeful and that's really meaningful work to me. So when I got the exposure to the data center world, that's all she wrote. I've been in the data center world ever since then, over a decade at this
Wow.
point, but I've had the ability to manage or become a subject matter expert over multiple technical service layers. And on top of that, in an enterprise environment.
Yeah.
So, a lot of just great exposure opportunities at Jack Henry. A lot of, if you have the will, they'll show you the way. And I think my career is attributed to that kind of culture that they have fostered.
Yeah. No, that's incredible. You mentioned, you consider yourself a lifelong learner, and tech is one of those spaces where you have to learn all the time. And so I guess, you must have an incredible network, but what else do you do to kind of continue to learn and grow in the technology space?
Great question. Definitely every day is something new or something new is consumed. But I do have a couple of preferred platforms or mechanisms that I'll find myself going to on a very regular basis, maybe daily, weekly. Nonetheless, these things come into my pathway very often. And one platform that I really enjoy is LinkedIn Learning, but there's a lot of different resources like LinkedIn Learning. Generally, I find myself on LinkedIn quite a bit for just talking about some of my key subjects that I enjoy talking about to my network. And LinkedIn Learning has a lot of training opportunities where you can even do like CPE credits and help build your own credentials and backgrounds, and you can get certification exams done on that platform. So I found that platform specifically allows me to say self-pace. I could dive into literally any topic that I have a desire in pursuing. I've gone into like lead certification trainings before, as we've brought up our sustainability and environmental objectives that we've been trying to, make a footprint on. So just I can really dial into whatever it is that I feel like I'm weak in or I'm lacking, and I can skill up in that way. I got into the senior leadership position after I consumed a couple of years of some intense LinkedIn accounting training. So generally, I started out in technology. I wasn't responsible for managing a P&L or any budgets or even expenses. I would basically just advocate these are the expenses we need. But you have to have the ability to manage at a certain level if you want to advance into senior business leadership. And so I knew that I had no skills in accounting or corporate finance and taxes. And that was going to be something that helped me lead into my senior role that I'm in now. So I spent a few years just gaining like 20 different CPE credits for accounting, corporate finance, and taxes, all on the LinkedIn platform. And those skills I use every single day, and I have for a few years now. And they'll be skills I use for the rest of my career. So LinkedIn Learning is a great platform. There's a lot of other ones too. But I also really enjoy, like you said, the in-person networking opportunities. So I love to attend regional or local education conferences, seminars, and webinars. And just really, I also am kind of like a data nerd. I really enjoy research papers. I find myself on McKinsey's reports all the time. But I also find myself a lot on the US government websites, for example, the US labor statistics website. I like to understand what's the job market looking like across the United States, but even more specifically, what's the job market like for technology and where are we going? What are we predicting across the United States? Which there's some very interesting data there, but there's also a lot of good opportunities when we understand what they're describing.
With everything that you're taking in, your 17-year career and all of the information, what are your thoughts on the current state of IT and technology in general?
Oh, I think it's super exciting. It's a world that is never going to go backwards. We're never going to experience technology the way that we do even today, the way that we experienced it yesterday. It's just constantly evolving, and there's with the way that the infrastructure of the world has been set at this point, there's just at this point endless opportunities. And so generally, I just think that the world has a lot to still explore, and we are the human beings that get to drive the technology innovation to being the ones to go through the exploration. So I just think it's really exciting because there's just so much untapped potential. But we can even see what the evolution has been with, and the stories that I just described. 17 years ago, typing wasn't even barely
Right.
offered in high school. Like I went into a tech profession not even knowing how to send an email. I can tell you, I got like a 5-year-old kid that knows how to send email now. What's even cooler is like they're teaching kindergartners how to code,
Yeah, so
like Minecraft characters and stuff.
that's
Like
right.
I could have never imagined that 17 years ago, but here we are. And it's like common for these kids to be doing that stuff nowadays. So yeah, generally I think the world is really exciting for technology.
Yeah, very exciting, but I think it needs to be said that with that excitement, there's also probably a little bit of a fear or challenge. Can you speak to that a little bit of how we kind of temper the excitement of technology and how much it's changing with also making sure that we address all the fears that might come with it?
Yeah, I think that's the hard part because what we do know is human beings, we don't tend to like change. There's a few of us that really it gets us going, but for the most part, we don't like to adopt change. And it does create fear if there's this element of unknown or uncertainty, which is what change creates for us. And so I think that is going to be the biggest challenge is for us as human beings to get over our own fear of change. For example, artificial intelligence, that's the hot emerging
Yep.
technology. We hear so many people there's like these theories where they're fearful of it. Like, oh, this is going to take over the world. It's going to take over human jobs. It's going to change the way we live. And they see it in a really fearful way. I think that's generally something deep within us as human beings that we carry, but we have the ability to recognize it and overcome it. So we have to get to the point where we adopt the technology because once we just start using it, we're going to start to realize, just like what we have done so far with technology, we're going to realize it creates so many conveniences for us and just in our everyday lives. So we have to learn to adopt for change. And then once we start exposing ourselves to that uncomfortable feeling of uncertainty, I don't know what this is. Once we can overcome those kind of thoughts, we're going to really blossom and we're going to really leverage the technologies that are being created or presented to us as consumers.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's so funny. To me at least, humans are the reason why so many things change, and humans are the organisms that are also the most resistant to it. We're fighting this weird
Right.
battle with wanting to grow and change and evolve, and also wanting to protect ourselves and stay in our safe space. Um, but let's assume we get over these fears, right? And it's inevitable. We will get over these fears and we'll lean into technology. To you, I mean, it's very hard to predict this because technology goes its own way a lot of the times. But what does the future of tech look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the future of tech is that it's literally in everyone's lives. Every human being is using technology. From toddlers who are taking a tumbling class, they're using technology to do their tumbling routine through an iPod speaker or something. Generally, from the smallest of our humans to the oldest of our humans, we're using technology in every aspect of our lives. If you think about where we're at today with technology already and the Internet of Things, I'm sure your house is wired with all kinds of cool tech gadgets to make your life more convenient. I know mine is. And I pretty much everyone that I know, whether they're in tech or not, they've used these conveniences, these things that can connect to technology or to the internet. The most prominent one that I seem like a lot of people have already adopted is the wearable technology with like an Apple Watch or a Fit Watch, and they gain all kinds of insight into their own physical and mental well-being just by wearing, a wearable piece of technology. So the future of technology is it's not going away. It's only going to get better. And it's going to get even better when we as human beings overcome the fear of the emerging technologies and we just start using them. Because when we start using them, we're going to start to realize it's not fearful. It's actually conveniencing my life and not holding us back. But then we'll find new ways to innovate how we live our lives every day and we'll just find more proficiencies and then for that should allow us to focus on even greater things, maybe not necessarily the creation of technology, but maybe it's some personal focus on your own self-care because you're not having to manage some other aspect that now you have an AI maybe helping you manage.
We're definitely touching on it a bunch through this conversation, but I kind of want to ask it directly. We're biased because we're in the world of tech. But why do you think it's important for people, humans, to pay attention to tech in general, whether or not they're directly involved in a tech company?
Generally, people should pay attention to tech because I mean it's a lot of exposure about who we are. Like I just described an Apple Watch. can give someone very specific analytics about their own mental health or their own physical health. And that's very personal information. It's personal to that person. And so generally we got to understand we're exposing ourselves more when we use technology, but there are benefits if we are cautious with how we leverage it or how we allow information to be exposed or to be used. And so I think at minimum, everyone needs to be aware of security of technology and their privacy for technology, what they're allowing to be received by any technology provider or vendor. But generally, yes, I think everyone in the world today needs to have some awareness about how technology could be exposing them and some of their personal information that they otherwise wouldn't have exposed to the world if it wasn't for a piece of technology that they're leveraging.
Yeah, it's AI is one of those big buzzwords, the emerging technology. Cybersecurity is the other thing that has definitely been on top of mind for a lot of people because of AI, but in general, with everything moving to the cloud and everything online, cybersecurity is, I mean, we just finished Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Cybersecurity is more pertinent than ever. And so I just like that idea of, you know, even if you're not in the world of tech, tech is a part of our lives, and so you have to be aware of its changes and how it could affect you, and and understand, the privacy that you would like to come with that. And especially my generation, generations before, right, we're immediately on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, just constantly sharing our data. And like you said, not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but it's important to be aware of that, and know how to protect ourselves moving forward if we need to.
Yep, I completely agree. And I'm glad that you brought up cybersecurity too, because I think you asked what are some of the challenges. And that is one of the challenges. And it's not necessarily just for everyone that's not in technology, but really, I think who I'm speaking to now is like aspiring technologists or people who might not necessarily see their opportunity to help with the innovation of technology or the security of it. But that is a huge gap that we have as Americans is we have a cybersecurity skills gap, at least in the current technology workforce, but we have a prediction to where we're gonna have 700,000 new jobs in technology between now and 2030, and most of that is gonna stem from the need of cybersecurity and IT security professionals. So when we talk about some of the challenges in the industry, that is absolutely a challenge. We have all of these things available to us already as American citizens, the wearable technology, the TikTok apps, and generally, we don't have enough technologists in the workforce today that are helping us mitigate these things the way that we really should in a pioneering, innovative way. So that is a challenge that I see that we have generally as Americans. We have some technology skills gaps, especially when it comes to technology securities.
With it being so important, how do we address that skills gap? I have my general thoughts and ideas, but I'm curious to hear yours.
Okay, I will share my ideas and general thoughts, but I want to hear yours too. I'd
Yeah.
love another perspective on this. But from my point of view, there's a number of different ways where we can start to solve this gap. One thing that stands out to me the most is our hiring practices. As technology roles get presented, something that I've learned in my research is that most US employers are posting technology jobs with a minimum of a 4-year degree.
Mm.
So you've got to have a 4-year degree to even be qualified for a tech job. We've been in technology a long time, so have I. And we both know that the traditional degrees, they're valuable for baseline. But when it comes to technology, there's a shelf life on our skill sets. The technology has a shelf life. It becomes obsolete after about 5 years. That degree program isn't necessarily staying innovative with how fast our technology is innovating in the marketplace. So I think our hiring practices have to change. We have to change the requirement that more than 60% of US employers have a 4-year degree on technology position. We have to assess and measure technology skill sets differently. And I don't believe that that's under a traditional degree program. I think if we remove that minimum requirement, we're going to have a lot more potential candidates come in for these jobs because a lot of them probably already work in tech. they're not qualified based on a minimum qualification listing, but they probably have some of these cybersecurity skill sets already. So I think hiring practices are one way that we change that. And then another aspect is recruiting, just getting more of the younger generations knowledgeable about where technology is going to lead us in the future, how we're going to use it. And then ultimately, start skilling them up with these types of skill sets. You know, like I said earlier in the gym and the toddler situation, like the kids are already being exposed to it as kindergartners. Why not expose them to the security aspects where we have this growing need and gap? And I think generally there's a lot of different opportunities. It's recruiting. It's also how we're hiring today to help close some of that gap.
Absolutely. And now I guess you want to hear my
I
my
do.
thoughts
I
on
want
this.
to hear your
This
thoughts.
is during the podcast. Usually, it's very much the other person, and so most of my thoughts are definitely not revealed. So I actually have to like answer a little bit and share a little bit of my thoughts. But um, very similar to you, I very much agree. I think you mentioned something that's a little radical, right? It's a really big change, right? Rethinking the hiring practices, and adjusting it to not just be this strict. Because I grew up, I have to go to college for me to succeed in life at all, and I'm talking to someone right now who entered the workforce straight out of high school and has succeeded far beyond what I believed I could get to straight out of high school. And so really rethinking this idea that um, the phrase comes to mind, one size does not really fit all. College life isn't for everybody, but it doesn't mean that if it doesn't work for you, that you don't have a future in learning or in career growth. And I think I'm kind of giving my own radical answer here. It's shifting the way we approach that mentality of how we should go about learning in general. I mean, the way you talk about learning is you just leaned into your curiosity. You asked the right questions, which is something we do really well as children. But I think as we get older, especially for me in school, I'm always just like, I just have to do this for the grade. I have to do this for the grade. And then I enter the real life and I'm like, nothing I learned has anything to do. Like I just didn't jump into my curiosities at all. And so hearing the way you learn, I wish that we kind of had that mentality throughout all of schooling. Pursue what you love. And I think to add to that, related to the cybersecurity shortage, cybersecurity is a really cool thing. Like it's very, very interesting. IT in general, tech in general. And I think we need to almost market it better, add more pizzazz to it so that people want to pursue it as a career. And so I think on the flip side of rethinking hiring practices, I want to rethink how we approach education in general and how we should be pursuing our passions. But I think from a less radical standpoint, for an organization who's running into these issues and wanting to fill that cybersecurity gap but can't, you mentioned it earlier, but upskilling and reskilling what you already have, right? The people you already have, a lot of them probably already have some cybersecurity knowledge. And Jack Henry for you has been really good at providing you the resources you need to learn and grow more, right? And so something that can be very, very beneficial to organizations. It reduces turnover, it increases like retention rate, is investing in your employees and going, we believe in you. We want you to learn these new things and we can like create a new role for you. And you were a living example of that, moving from role to role and creating your own path in a way. And providing a learning opportunity that you might not have had during your academic career, if you will. And so I think reprioritizing and looking at your employees and going, how can I grow you in the way that you want to grow? And it's a win-win, right? It makes that person more knowledgeable and it makes the company fill a gap that they might not have been able to fill otherwise.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that with me, Jethro. I couldn't agree anymore. I think if we have a person that's already a cultural fit for a company, then why not try to upskill them or even reskill them? They already fit your company's culture. They understand the strategies, the desired business outcomes that we're working to achieve in the marketplace of that company. I mean, to your point, there's so many benefits for upskilling or reskilling the person that's already within your organization. We increase their productivity, especially with technology. If we're familiar with the technology, we have the skill sets, we can get to resolution a lot faster when we're faced as a business or a technologist with some sort of technology challenge that may be hindering or becoming a barrier to our business, generally it helps improve employee morale. It gives employees a sense of they're advancing, they're cultivating opportunities for growth. And to your point, it helps the employer as well. You're reducing your turnover, and ultimately it should increase the business's competitiveness because you have an individual that's already a cultural fit and they have the skill sets with the technology that you're trying to use or innovate with. So there is definitely a lot of benefits to upskilling and reskilling employees.
We've talked outside of this podcast, and obviously I brought up that you were the first woman guest on this podcast. And that's something kind of note. But at Jack Henry specifically, you kind of pioneered or are part of this group, I guess, Women at Jack Henry, and kind of pioneering and leading women in tech. Do you mind talking a little bit about that?
I would love to talk about that. So in 2018, me and a few other women in our technology company, we started, kind of talking and assessing. Well, there's definitely some challenges to our careers that we don't necessarily feel are unique to us, that they were happening to more people, but more people weren't necessarily talking about it to make a change with what our experiences were. And so a few of us got together and we started describing some of our experiences, whether it's advancement opportunities, whether it's upskilling and reskilling opportunities and what those might be from business unit to business unit. Generally, what we started to identify is that women, they had a strong desire to grow, to advance, and to continue on their career paths in technology, but they weren't necessarily statistically moving through their career progression and the way that their career track should have had them outlined. So they were basically getting to a low level in their position and then they were stopped and they weren't progressing. It became stagnant in the data. And so we got together, we're like, okay, this is our own experience, but here's data because we surveyed a lot of our employees. We also hosted focus groups and we wanted to really kind of assess like what is generally the women at Jack Henry's experience as employees of this workforce. And what we did find is that women desired the opportunity to have community. They desired the opportunity to develop, to have mentorship, to have guidance on how they do continue through their career paths. They also desired a platform to have their voices heard. And so we came together. We partnered with our HR leaders, and under the HR lens, it was pitched to them as an employee resource group. That's the industry term, but we call it in Jack Henry a business innovation group. And so we essentially established an employee resource group, but we wanted to make sure that we're not just getting a bunch of people together that have common challenges or common interests and it just be, like a victim or a complaining community. We wanted it to be we have these women that are passionate. They want these things, or they have a desire to connect over these things. How do we tie that back to our business so that we diversify our business more? We're diversifying our workforce, but we're also driving strategic business outcomes. So how do we tie that back to our bottom line? And so that's why we want the business innovation group. We started with like just 5 of us at first, and then within the first year, we had over 250 women nationally raising their hands to participate. Today, now we have over 6 of these resource groups created. The Women at Jack Henry was our first one. We were able to use that as a framework and mentor other leaders over different interest area. And so we just launched our Jack Henry Avid group, which is focused on visible and invisible disabilities. That's our 6th group. And generally, there's over 3,000 employees across all of the United States participating in these different interest groups that all tie back to a business strategy. And every year we have strategy meetings with the corporate leadership team and the leaders of these innovation groups so that we can make sure that we're driving our communities towards outcomes that achieve our business strategies and goals. So we tie it back to our executive leadership. And something that we really focus on under the Women at Jack Henry is recruiting women in technology. And that's something I have a huge passion for. And then also advancing women in leadership. And so, generally, I think we've given them a lot of different mechanisms for how they can grow their skills and obtain those types of desires in their own career tracks. But we've made a lot of progress in the 5 years that we've been pursuing this. And generally, I think we're doing some really purposeful work. We're getting people connected with resources that will help them skills develop. We're getting them connected with opportunities that allow them to kind of shine outside of their daily focuses. Um, and generally getting them connected with people outside of Jack Henry and inside of Jack Henry, because there's a lot of different knowledge that can be obtained by, just a network of people and professionals.
Hearing you talk is so refreshing, not just about women in tech and women in Jack Henry, but just the passion that you have uh, about it, and especially from such a unique story. We are running close to time, which is like my least favorite sentence to always say, because I think there's so much that we have not yet tapped into. It's very akin to the untapped potential of technology. I feel like we've touched on a few things, which I think kind of means, and I'm kind of asking you, I would love to kind of have a follow-up or a follow-up to the follow-up and have more episodes with you to just dive into a lot of other topics and a lot of other different things, and to dive in deeper into the stuff that we've talked about.
I would love that. I enjoy having conversation with you, Jethro, and yeah, let's talk more about some other things. We have a lot that we can talk about with technology.
That being said, I do have two more questions. And the first one is, what's next for you and for the team? What are the big goals and the projects that you guys want to accomplish moving forward?
Generally what's next for us, I'd like to get more of my team involved in more of the outside of Jack Henry community. We have a lot of technologists that are very high tech professionals within our organization that really could be doing a lot of things like what I'm doing and just sharing, our experiences and knowledge with more people, whether they're already industry professionals or they're aspiring or they're professionals in a different industry that maybe want to pursue a pivot. We see that a lot too. And so I think what's next for my team, I'd love for more of them to be more involved in sharing their knowledge and the resources that they've come across, because there's some of the leading in the American tech workforce. And then big goals for me, I wanna make sure I get more of my messages, around like the cybersecurity upskilling need or just the skills gap in general, or the desire to recruit more women and young professionals into technology as we approach, an evolving world of new emerging tech. We're gonna need more people to innovate, create, use it, yeah, secure it, and all of that. And so from my point of view, I want to continue speaking around the US next year. And at some point, I have a goal to be a TED speaker.
Yeah, awesome. That's a cool goal.
Yeah, 5 years ago, I literally was throwing up every time I had to do a presentation. Not even exaggerating. It was a horrible experience. But I positioned myself to being uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and eventually I became comfortable. So now I actually really enjoy getting opportunities to speak with people like you, or going to share with our audiences at universities and different venues where we can share these messages and make more people aware that, hey, these opportunities and possibilities exist. They're not unique to me. They're unique to the industry in a lot of ways, but they become even more unique when more people contribute to them
Yeah.
and they add their own talent and skill to it. So yeah, a lot of question there, a lot of detail. What's next is I really I want to continue sharing these messages, but I want more people to share their experience and messages too.
Absolutely. And the second and final question is, are there any final thoughts that you wanted to share and close with that you didn't get to during the course of this conversation?
Generally, I think my final thoughts are there are a lot of different reasons why we participate in technology or why we use technology. I don't think that we'll ever stop using it in our society. And so I just want people to understand that there are a lot of endless opportunities. It's like I said at the beginning, 15 years ago, typing was barely a thing. Now it's unheard of for even small children to not know how to use a keyboard.
Yep.
And so there are endless opportunities. You can really dive into so many different facets of technology within your own interest and passion and see that there's no ceiling to how deep you can take it. And I think generally, I also want others to think about there's more than just the financial incentives, there's non financial incentives for pursuing tech careers. The financial incentives are a huge perk because technology is the second leading industry for wealth in America, right behind healthcare. Healthcare is highest paying, and then technology. And so generally there are a lot of cool financial incentives, but a lot of the non-incentives like you and I talked about, Jethro, around, just pioneering and innovating with emerging technologies, overcoming the fear of those things, and then actually using them in our everyday lives to make our experiences more enjoyable as a human. And then I think the last piece is we all have the ability to make a real impact on our lives, on technology, how humanity is using technology, and how we leverage it as a society. And so when we really position ourselves to think that we have the ability to create that change, I think that's really powerful for us to have that kind of mindset. So I would encourage everyone to really shape shift their mind to understanding they have a true impact here, even if it feels like it's a massive scale or industry.
Well, Simoriah, thank you so much for your time and for your thoughts and your wisdom. I'll say very candidly, this was a very refreshing conversation to have. Appreciate you being so vulnerable with your passion and your excitement. And I think that's something we need more of in life in general, but also in tech. And to really push the needle in that regard of loving what you do, doing what you love, and leaning into that love and trying to make change. And I think that's a really incredible thing. And I wish you all the best, and I want to support you however I can in that endeavor. But I just wanted to say thank you again so much. This means a lot.
Thank you, Jethro. It's been a true pleasure to chat with you.
All right, Simoriah, take care, and we will talk soon.
All right, you too. Bye.
All right, bye-bye. VCOM Solutions is here to help make your IT projects and day-to-day operations as easy and efficient as possible. If you'd like to see how VCOM can help your organization save time and money, request a demo at vcomsolutions.com/demo. Do you work in IT? Be a guest on Braindrop. Go to vcomsolutions.com/Braindrop guest to sign up. Thanks again for dropping in. Don't forget to subscribe, and you can find us on social media at VCOM Solutions. Until next time.